My Gavanan Melonin, and well met indeed. I'm Adhir Galadirthan, and welcome back to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition as we bring you another diplomacy game. And today I thought, why not? I've talked about this a number of times. Let's get your thoughts and feedback, because now we've done a few of these. You, yes, you, watching along. You are the people that are actually going to watch these kinds of things now. So I wanted to use Capture Age to get a feel if people think this is better or worse. Obviously, just talking about Capture Age briefly while everyone gets into position and whatnot. Capture Age gives you way more information. So much more information. As you can see from allies and things down the side, it shows you villagers and military unit counts along the top. And the map is so much more information. Town centres, kings, castles, all things like that are all going to show up. It also shows you pings on the map and the like. And I imagine it will also show you text messages from people to other people at all points of the game, which the normal version does do, but it can be a little trickier to follow along with them. The allied thing is particularly interesting because it will show you who's allied to whom. Otherwise, though, Capture Age plays no music, so you're not going to hear any music, I'm afraid. And I'm going to do it music-less rather than try and post in some music in the edit. I don't edit it if I can help it. So you can't see, there's no music, and also the graphics are noticeably, to my eye, worse, but you can zoom all the way out. So it swings and roundabouts, really. But this is the tool that is used to capture any kind of proper tournament game or pro game in Definitive Edition, because it has just so much information. So anyway, this is Capture Age. Let me know if you prefer this or if you're happy with just the normal bog standard way. I don't use Capture Age really ever, so I don't actually know how to do very much stuff. So that one you're going to have to bear with me. I assume if you click on a certain person, it focuses on them. Shift and right click on player units or buildings to change player. There you go. Anyway, we never really use the Fog of War in Diplo games. So, this is a diplomacy game. The same rules apply as ever, but this is the first part in the Doomsday series. And with some tweaking, we're going to get to a really good point for it. But what happens in this game is... Oh dear, I'm clicking on fish all over the place. Disappeared for a moment there, didn't it? Anyway, in this game, when the in-game timer reaches 2 hours, that's this timer ticking up in the middle of the screen here, when that reaches 2 hours, all alliances and all abilities to change alliances are nullified. So no one is allied to anyone else any longer once that hits 0. Oh, are we focusing on me at the moment? We are, aren't we? So you're going to get little ding ding dings every time I build or train anything. I don't actually know how to swap that to Gaia. I'm already selecting the great fish marlin. Why is it not changing me to that? Oh, I really don't know how to use this very well at all, I'm afraid. So I apologise for that. We're probably going to get my sound effects for the whole thing because I don't know how to choose Gaia. No, I am Gaia. Unsure. Anyway, I am Grey. I am playing as the Britons this time, much against my usual type. This is, of course, standard diplomacy rules. If your king dies, you're dead, and all of your buildings are destroyed. You can have one ally at any time. You can have neutral alliance. You can be neutral with as many people as you like. Cannon galleons generally are never allowed in these types of games to let everyone have a chance at winning if they settle on the shoreline and they're trapped in the shores. And then, as I say, this one, the Doomsday scenario, when it hits 2 hours, all alliances are cancelled. I'm playing as the Britons. I am Grey, and I've settled on this southern part. This map is China and Korea and parts of Japan, and it's a map we've used a great many times. And I've settled down here, and I'm going to start harvesting as many fish as I possibly can. Do you harvest fish? You fish. I've also got a little person over here on the Isles of Japan where I will, once we get to the Castle Age, make use of that. I'm the only person that's gone over there. I've also taken the Isle of Taiwan, and I am my main town centre there in the centre there. If we move over, we've got Luke playing as the Vietnamese to my west. I can't click on his town centre for some unknown reason, but he's playing as the Vietnamese. He's over here, so he knows where everyone's starting town centres are. And you'll note at the moment, almost everyone, except for me, has their king in their town centre, but I'm using him to scout. And he's running about. Moving further north, we've then got Chris, 7LN, playing as the Gujaras, one of the new Indian civs. Do you have to right-click to select the town centre? No, you just have to select really, really hard. Anyway, he's playing as the Gujaras, and he's in yellow away here in the west. He started right next to Moss, who's playing as the Franks. So they are very, very close together. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, and if there's any early tier aggression there. Up the coast from me, playing in light blue, we've got Upper Left Islander as the Sicilians. Sicilians and Britons is a poor matchup. But further north from him, we have Fragments of Gwent playing as the Celts, a siege civ. Sicilians are kind of an infantry civ, but they do get slightly better cavaliers than most nations, particularly if you're attacking archers with them. But mostly they're a donjon and sergeant civ. That's about their only unique features. They do get relatively good siege. Away over here, sandwiching himself in its weirdest start I've ever seen. Mats is playing as the Spanish and has settled on the northern tip of North Korea. Or the southern tip of where China meets Korea. Because this is northern tip of North Korea, isn't it? So this is on the Chinese-Korean border. And he's playing as the Spanish, a very good jack-of-all-trades, all-rounder kind of civ. And then lastly, we've got Ramster 44 playing as the Byzantines, settling there. And they're really, really close together again. So that's where everyone's setting up. Let's speed this baby up and get some action going. Because it always takes people a while. I should have had it sped up already. I apologise for that. Can't speed it up any quicker. Can he make it go quicker? People going up to the feudal age. It's all ticking through. You can see the scores on the feudal age and the like down the side. I'm actually doing rather well at the moment, but that mostly comes from my king having scouted around the world. But we'll see how we fare later. I've moved my king to Taiwan for safety. Safety protocols engaged. I am expanding as necessary on Japan. Everyone at the moment, though, just harvesting resources, expanding out, gathering what they can gather. Nothing too extreme going on. No real military to speak of for absolutely anyone. As you can see, ones across the board. Plenty of villagers. Very few idle villagers nowadays. But there are still one or two. That's what the fellow leading means. And the hammer means just villagers in general. And then the sword is military. So you'll note that at the moment, no one anywhere near military. But people trying to get up to the castle age as quickly as possible. Dropping more town centres. And Mats' second town centre going down there in Korea. He has now encircled Ramster already. In speaking of how good is everyone going to be, who's going to do what, how's it all going to fare, Upper Left Islander, Chris, Mats, and maybe myself are the people most likely expected to win this one, depending on who allies with whom. And Fragments and Moss and Luke could certainly change the course of the world if they do something, if they side with the right people, if they put in the right work, if they put in the right gumph and action. And Ramster kind of just along for the ride. I'm sorry, Ramster, if you're watching this, but that would be my official review of your current abilities. All right, moving in and claiming territory from me, we have Upper Left Islander. He's already got 4 town centres, and they're all in his realm, but that's not enough for him. He's decided to build a town centre north of my base, where my town centres are going up. You can see all the town centres dropping up on the map. Luke not having placed a second one. Oh, no, he's just placing his second one now out on the edge. I've also got one on Japan. Safety, security. My outpost is under attack. I'd built outposts on this northern side. You can see there's one there. Just to make sure we knew what Upper was doing, because Upper is someone you want to watch out for. And my attempts to get him to ally with me were fruitless. They bore no fruit. So I needed to be cautious of that. But you can start seeing people have allied. Upper Left Islander has taken Grenth as an ally. Mats has taken Ramster because Ramster had no choice. I am ally-less. I have no ally. No one wants to join me. Very sad times indeed. Chris and Moss have allied as expected. So you would expect that Luke and I would ally now at this point. But Luke decides that an alliance with me is not in his best interests, and he doesn't move to ally me. But the early aggression kicks in. Absolute disgusting behaviour. I'm being castle dropped when I was going to castle drop him. And I continue with that plan. And we try to put 2 castles down. But those castles are so... that is way, way, way too ambitious. And we're going to lose a lot of villagers trying to get those castles up, I can assure you. Way too many villagers. Mats and Ramster just spreading out, but they have now bumped into Moss for some reason, who has built a second town centre miles from his actual base. Not really sure why, what the purpose of that is. Fragments slowly spreading out in the central region, and Moss and Chris claiming the back corners on these sides here. Mats has got his king in his castle there, and moving it away from Ramster. Ramster's is still in the town centre. Oh, Oh, it gives you attack noises for just anyone at any point. Oh, that's interesting. This is very much your and my first taste of capture age. Luke was being attacked by Upper, but Upper decided to call off that attack and send his troops back to hit me. Absolute disgraceful behaviour. He also takes out Chris's shipping on the side there. We managed to get the castle up, though. And, I start building sappers to try and destroy his castle, but, alas, the sappers do not succeed. See, when you zoom in close, the graphics aren't too bad, but there's a sort of just blurriness to the graphics, I find. It's cool that you can zoom out, though. Castles look so big on the map when you zoom this far out. Anywho, this is where all the action is kicking off, so let's keep with it. Moss's little enclave is allowed to survive. Let's keep with it, he says, and then immediately changes position. Although Fragments and Mats are building castles on one another. My castle, my first one did get up, and it manages to take down a few of the enemy units, but unfortunately for us, sergeants have outrageous anti-archer armor. And it's just such a damned shame. 3+2 Pierce is unbelievable. We're only in the castle. Although, no, Upper... Oh, no, Upper's not there yet. Only Moss and Mats have made it to the Imperial Arge. My villagers were in my castle, which was giving it a boost. And we move archers forward. I built some archery ranges. Let's get this thing going. Mats and Fragments meeting each other in the north there, starting to take down castles and attack one another. But unfortunately, with Mats in the Imperial Age and Fragments nowhere near, it's not looking good, and he loses his castle. At this point, I'm still not allied to Luke. He still doesn't think it's in his interest to ally with me, even though he has no ally. Absolutely outrageous. We start to try and drop that castle. We do manage to get our 2 castles up as our economy starts to thrive in all places that we can get it up. We're just harvesting everything we can get, claiming every resource that we can claim. Starting to get some military units out. As you can see, there's very few military across the board. But Upper with 35 and myself with 18. We're claiming that. It was up to 42. He's spamming out his troops now. And because he's made it to the Imperial Arge, the trebuchets come down and he starts taking down that castle there. Still not allied to Luke by this point. Moss's little enclave is finally taken care of. Galadothan's petard is under attack. Moss's little town centre goes down. And the fighting continues around here, so let's speed her up again. As we wait with bated breath for the rest of the world to decide what they're going to do. As my castles fall to the trebuchets and the hordes of sergeants coming behind. And I'm just getting my units killed there. Absolute shambles. We start swapping into even just some cavaliers, just something to get into in amongst the roster. Because we're going to be up against those sergeants shortly and we need to do something about it. Fragments' town centre is being hit, and they are now on the edge of his realm. Fragments has all of this northern area. Central area, I think, is probably the better phrase. Upper takes down my castle. He moves to repair his own castle, and then starts attacking my other castle. It's just all going very pear-shaped. I'm sandwiched in a corner. Not looking good at all, and still not allied with Luke. He still doesn't want an alliance. Chris, by this point, has run his king off to the far corner of the map. Ramsters is not even in a building, just hiding in the north. Absolutely outrageous. Mine's nice and protected on the island, not getting that anytime soon. And I hit the Imperial Age at last, leaving only Chris, Luke, and Ramster not up with us in this age just yet. But Upper draws back for some reason. I don't seemingly recall Chris asking Luke if he wants to trade. Absolutely ridiculous. Behind my back, Luke trying to play neutral. Just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I still don't really have any military, though. Despite him poised there, I'm just desperately trying to gather as many resources. I'd kind of assumed my base was going to fall, so I thought the best plan of action here would be to just let the base fall and try and get resources, and when I can always scurry off to Japan if need be. But he's not making a move on us at the moment, and still not allied. In the north, Moss and Fragments taking each other on. Well, no. Moss's castle is attacking Fragments' town centre, but that is it. Everyone else just stalemating. One just sitting, waiting to get to the Imperial Age, desperate to not do anything. And now I've allied with Luke. So Luke finally decides to join with me, and we will take on Upper together. My building's now being attacked. Upper still just keeping his troops behind the line, but just sitting there doing nothing. I had no idea he was doing nothing. I definitely could have built some more troops in this time. Harvesting as many materials as I can possibly get. Just keep it harvesting. Just keep on harvesting. Moss's few little docks still being attacked there, but otherwise nothing really of note. Upper starts to send in the Cavaliers. Now these are Sicilian Cavaliers with, I believe they've already got their Hauberk tech. So their pierce armor is up at 6. Unbelievable. Still, no other attacks anywhere else. It is all going on down in our base. My castle finally falls as I then just start harvesting the gold. It's like the meme of the dog in the burning house. This is fine. Just keep mining gold as our town centre and not town centre, as our castle falls. They're taking down the university. The absolute Philistines. They have no love for culture or knowledge. No respect. No respect at all. Disgusting Sicilian actions. He's gathering a rather large array of trebuchets. Not entirely certain if he needs that many. I think that might be a touch overkill. But nevertheless, at least I have a staunch ally now. As you can see, score-wise, Mats is absolutely storming it with Upper next, and then I'm a little behind that, and Chris bringing up in 4th. Pretty much on a par with Fragments. Although remember that Chris is allied to Moss, the orange player, whose base has been rather absorbed by the expanding Chris and expanding Fragments. So they must be going to come to blows soon, because Moss just doesn't have any space. No space at all. Upper still just sitting back, watching as we all just keep ploughing on through those ages. 47 in-game minutes in. Matt's making full use of the market there. Blimey O'Reilly. Ramsay is quite literally running his king to the corner of the map, and he's going to put him in a tower. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, let's go back up to the times 8. Don't know why we're on times 1. Gwent's going to build a wall and stop the cavalry hordes that he's seen, and try and build a border between him and Moss. And Moss is going to move out to try and stop that. Just as Luke then hits out at Chris for the first time. Luke and Chris have a sort of an understanding, and a bit like Earendil, where Chris and Earendil love to skip off into the sunset together. Luke basically does whatever Chris asks him to do, and I'm surprised he hasn't realised at the moment that he's very much Chris's bitch, if you'll pardon the phrase. And I'm sure he's going to rename himself as that, but that wasn't the plan when I said it. But Luke does whatever Chris says, so to see Luke hitting Chris is such a breath of fresh air. Delightful. As the hordes of Cavaliers from Upper come through into my base finally, where I've got some trebuchets sitting, just hoping to die. And he starts... now he's got the Hauberk tech. 8 pierce armor for the Cavaliers. That is outrageous. Particularly because I am an archer civ. Absolutely ridiculous. You'll note that Luke has got a fair few troops, though. Elite battle elephants. He's got some Rattans, and he's got a lot of siege. The cavalry army just runs through its base, flaunting the fact that basically it can do that and not lose a single man. Outrageous. But Luke claiming space off of Chris. The perfect push. Chris cannot really rely on his ally at this stage because, well, he can, but his ally's tied up with having to worry about Fragments attacking him. And all the while, Mats just grows stronger and does exactly what Mats always does in Diplo games. Like, change the record, Mats. Jesus. How many castles is it possible for Mats to build is very much the question. I start trying to trade with Upper even while his troops are doing me dirty in my own base, because why not? And Luke's forces seem to peter out. I don't know where the rest of his elements have gone. As he started to bring them back to help me. Help me! Help me, Luke! Help me, Luke Kenobi. You're my only hope. No, but he is being attacked. Chris's dock's still being taken on, and Ramster sends some galleons in to try and hit me. Very interesting indeed, but he pulls them away a little. The Cavaliers run through my base. Now, what the Cavaliers were searching for, of course, was my king. And Upper has come to the very swift realization, after he scouted my entire base, that my king is not on this mainland, and must therefore be somewhere else. We'll pick that thread up a little later on, but now we'll turn back to Luke, who pushes further into deep into mainland China, probably heading towards the Mongolian border now. Clearing out everything on his way. Chris is dead, sorry. Chris has resigned. So Luke's push into Chris's base made Chris resign. That's why nothing is attacking him back. Sorry, I completely missed that. There's a line through it. There's a cross under the name. 48-45. No, how are you defeated by Upper if your king is still in your castle? By Upper Left Islander. That's interesting. Upper hasn't even attacked Chris. I don't know what that means. Chris resigned. I'm not sure. And feel free to confirm that in the comments. But the king is in that castle. The king has not died. So Chris resigned. So I don't know why it says by Upper Left Islander. But anyway, Chris is gone. So Luke then has all of this space to himself and just moves troops in to clear it out. Even though the enemy is massing this amount of troops on the border, my ally decides the best thing to do is go on a scouting expedition into the heartlands of his enemy's old base. Absolutely outrageous. No, sorry. Chris had the bug, didn't he? Yes, of course. We play so many of these, they blend into one in my mind. At the moment, in Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, I'm speaking in May 2022, there is a bug in multiplayer games. I don't know if it's just scenarios or all multiplayer games, where if you try to talk to your teammates in-game using the in-game chat feature, your game freezes. And the actual game doesn't freeze, but your ability to command anything freezes. So you can look at the screen and you can see everything. You can move the mouse to my knowledge. So you can pan your camera around, but you can't select anything. You can't issue any orders. You can't do anything. You basically watch helplessly as your base is killed before you. It's in essence paralysis. There's a bug that paralyzes a player at the moment in the game. And it's a real problem. That's what happened to Chris in this one. So forgive me, after all the speculation, that's what went down. Interesting that it needs to assign an enemy, so it just assumed it was Upper. But no, he resigned. So Upper's forces just massing on the northern edge of my base. I send out some archers. That gold is rightfully mine, and I will not give it up easily. As Luke and Moss's forces hit Paladin on elephant carnage in the center of China. Something you never thought you'd see. And then down in the south, we've got my archers against the Cavaliers and the like of the incoming Sicilians. A lot of Sicilians. Now, I have got Warwolf on the Trebs, so we try and take some down, and that's a pretty good shot, not too bad at all. Warwolf gives them, of course, splash damage and 100% accuracy. All the while, Ramster in the north is just spying out my island holdings and seeing what he can do. But Luke is successful against Moss's Paladins and keeps up the pressure on that northern side. My archers, using the choke point of my buildings, are able to keep the Sicilians pinned. Oh, bear with me a moment. Let's just turn down the sound, shall we? Combat volume, critter volume, villager volume, selection volume. I should have just put the output volume down, shouldn't I? You're not supposed to see those bits, but it was only 2 seconds. Saves me 20 minutes in the editor afterwards. I'm just worried that in Capture Age the sounds of combat might be drowning me out. But my little bar's higher than the combat sounds, but hopefully that change was for the better. We'll see afterwards. It was very spur of the moment to use Capture Age, in case you haven't worked that out. I just thought, why not use Capture Age for today once? Right, so Fragments is now hitting back on Luke as well. Fragments and Moss are not allied. Moss now has no ally. But Moss, of course, isn't really a threat to Fragments, whereas Luke is. So Fragments moves in to hit him, and also because Upper is currently attacking me, I'm allied to Luke. So Fragment, Upper's ally, then starts hitting Luke, trying to enact some vengeance. I try and take down some of his trebs with my superior trebs, but we only managed to get one before they're gone. We do kill a reasonable amount, but nowhere near as many as we would like. And we lose so many archers in the meantime. So many archers. Absolutely outrageous. My castle line holds, though, and the elephants finally come back to support me. And, of course, these games have lag, by the way, if you're wondering why there's jittery lag. It's nothing to do with Capture Age. The game just has lag. Moss is starting to hit back on Fragments and giving him something to think about, but all the while, Ramster and Matt's still not doing anything. Matt's is only just leaving his base, and he comes to hit Fragments in the north there. Upper floods his forces into my base. The elephants do assist, but they die, but he masses more and gets ready to send them in one go. Siege starts taking down my castles. Fragments doesn't move back to deal with Moss, and he doesn't move back to deal with Matt's either. So Fragments' eco is going to be raided on 2 fronts in that northern border as the fighting continues bloody battles continue in my own base as the Briton longbowmen stand strong and firm against the Sicilians. Well, they don't really, because they die. They die against the Sicilians, but I like to try and rewrite the story in my own favour, you know. Luke finally brings his full army into bear. The Rattan archers are coming through now, along with the elephants. And he's going to move through and help, as I've lost 2 castles so far. And the third one goes down now. No, that was my market, sorry. 2 castles and a market. I don't have anything to really hold back the cavaliers and sergeants there. I've swapped into Arbalester. Instead of longbowmen. Arbalesti. But the elephants are coming through, and they're going to sideswipe on those trebs, just buying me enough time. My base is now nothing. I am bereft of any hope. The elephants arrive. The elephants arrive. And this is where the cavaliers of the Sicilians really are not going to hold up. Those elephants are going to make very short work of those and the sergeants. It's a fantastic push from Luke to save my bacon, as Mats moves in to claim that northern land from Fragments. So Fragments pulls his forces back after clearing Luke out of this region, and he sends his troops back in the north to try and assist there. Luke starts his massacre on the enemy, and it's all going very nicely indeed. We hold back Upper. Now, Upper and Fragments are now in the very unenviable position of being in the middle of the map, with Mats and Ramster in the north and me and Luke in the south. And of course, I am not dead. I've got plenty of resources. And with Luke's support as well, I can then help hold things back. My king is still in Taiwan, though, and quite happily safe over there. So we can let this base fall to our heart's content. We know that we have protection elsewhere, and we will be fine. The horde of archers that I have now will take down that small number of sergeants, so that's a blessing. And we've pushed back entirely Upper's army, and he sends his trebs back. He runs with his tail between his legs as Mats continues to cut through the north. Fragments having to send his whole army north to deal with Mats, and it's having to walk so far that it has not arrived in time. And Fragments has lost most of this northern base, so certainly all the parts of it that matter, the castles and the villages. Moss still being kept alive, though, and fighting on in his small little area there, as Chris's base was eventually wiped out with the defeat of his king, which Moss claimed and killed. At this point, I think it's time to evacuate my villagers, as unfortunately we've taken most of the resources here, and we need more resources. So the villagers are going on an exodus, and they toddle off to go and see what they can see and find what they can find and build what they can build over here in this space to the west. And I start hoarding out as many archers as I can train, and we wait the next attack. My castle starts getting hit on Japan by Ramster, who's had very little to do for most of this game, as he's putting trebs on islands out in the sea and hitting me from the islands. Absolute disgrace. Anything that is a target against me is a disgrace. You'll learn this as you watch more of these, if indeed you do watch more of these. I cannot be attacked. It's just not fair. But the castle is unfortunately going down, and it's at this point that we see the rather large gathering of forces in the ocean. The galleons are gathering, so we swap into some galleon creation. Let's counter him on the sea, shall we? If Ramster wants to go navy, I'll give him a damn good navy, and I'll give him a damn good thrashing at that. Mats is pushed back, though, by the horde of siege onagers. If you're playing as the Celts and you don't get a horde of siege onagers, are you really playing as the Celts? And we move up to build a castle in the west. Now, Moss is already in the west, but this is where I want to be. So I'm building a castle here. Town centre went down as well. I'm farming gold. But Moss brings an entire paladin horde back. Despite the fact that he has all of this space to himself, he wants this corner. No, no, no. So he moves in to stop me. My ships finally arrive in the ocean to take down the trebs. Castle not gone down yet, and we're repairing it with everything we've got as the galleons move in to stop the trebs' assault on our bases. Upper still not moving to attack us, but what is this? Transport ships. He's taking to the seas. He's doing what the Sicilians do best, island invasions. And my little expedition to the west is removed by Moss's paladins. Damn shame. We do lose the castle, but we replace it with 4 more. Like the Hydra. Cut one down and more will come. We realise that we're just losing galleons to the fleet of Ramster, so instead we shall pull up our galleons and attack as one powerful movement in due course. My army in the south now as well is relatively sizable, with archers ready to go. ready to go and start hitting our enemy and seeing what we can do to his base. See what our archers can do to Upper's base. Mats is being beaten back into the corner. Despite the sheer number of castles he has, he now can't get across the crossing because there's no way he's getting past that many siege onagers. And I am completely kicked out of the west there entirely. But my villagers do, as we say, just gather the gold as long as possible. We're now only 50 in-game minutes away from the timer kicking off and setting everyone to war with everyone else as my fleet continues to pour into the ocean. We've met the bulk of Ramster's force and we've killed off most of his fast-fire ships. So now it's just our galleons versus his galleons. My galleons, as you will note there, are better than his galleons. They have more range and they have more damage. So we shall win that if given the opportunity. Upper's sending fishing ships in to just scout out our island, a cheeky little bozo. And Matt sends out what he can to try and counter the Celtic hordes, but he seems to have lost a lot in the process, and he's now calling on Ramster to go into onagers of his own. Byzantine onagers, not something you see very often. The transport ships from Upper are on their way, but I've got galleons in the ocean, and he notices that and runs back with his tail between his legs. But at this moment, I decide that Luke, unfortunately, is more in the way than a help, and I kill him. I backstabbed him. He took so long to be my ally, and then he did so very little, save for the minor interjection there. I just wasn't having any of it. But Upper is desperate to get his landing on my island. He loses one transport in the attack. A second transport goes down. A third transport goes down. But he does get one of them to land. And he moves straight in on the castle. A second transport lands that's got the trebs in it. And at the right moment, we eject the king. Upper notices and starts sending the cavaliers after him. But we've got a transport ship ready. Always have a transport ship if your king's ever on an island. The cavaliers get stuck on the monk. And the king makes it to the transport ship. And the Isle attack is brought to nothing. He claims the island, but there's nothing there anymore. Do with it what you will, sir. Do with it what you will. My navy hits into Ramsters in the center there. And at this point, I start petitioning Moss. Moss, do you want to just be my ally rather than us kill each other? Because you don't have an ally, I don't have an ally. Let's just be friends, eh? And I think he eventually sees the sense in it and comes to agree. Not before losing most, if not all, of his paladins. I should have just pressed in. Could have had him. We get the king out. We bring in some galleons to cover, and we get the king away. Safety first. Our fleet meets Ramster's fleet in full force, as we lose another island to the trebs there. But we've got the castles on the island there. Mats is now being well and truly slapped around by Fragments' trebs. 3 more castles looking like they're going to go down, but he's managed to deal with the horde of siege onagers and the conquistadores come across the river crossing. This river crossing is desperate. It's very easy to fall back and defend it, but equally, if you can control this side of it, much better. Mats does lose all 3 castles though, and Moss still not agreed that we should be allies yet, so he likes to kill a few more paladins off first before he can agree to it, thinking that that's the best way to go about it. Upper's assault has failed, and my king is run off to this little island over here where he will then sit. Our galleons have won the sea war against Ramster, and we now control the ocean. We are the unrivaled rulers of the waves. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Singing out. We're a little bit early doors for that type of Britannia with Age of Empires 2, really. But if you're playing as Britain and you're not on the ocean, are you playing Britain right? No. Upper tells me that I shouldn't ally with Moss because he's going to kill Grenth right now, and he backstabs his own ally, setting his trebuchets in position and going in for it. But I've allied Moss anyway, and my archers and everything move out to then support what is going to be my new ally, as Upper realizes that the tide of war is shifted and that Grenth cannot, unfortunately, hold back the tide coming in from the north. And so Upper takes Grenth down. He kills the king, and Grenth is gone. So it's Upper claiming all of that central space now, and Grenth losing out. And the Mats and Ramster alliance in the north is now the primary threat. My archers and my army moves in, and we're going up to support Moss. Or are we? Moss's king goes into the castle there, moving him out of the town centre as my army moves up to support Moss. And Upper now has to hold off the tide of conquistadors coming in. My king gets put into the little tower. No one would expect he's in the tower. Of course not. And then trade between Upper and myself flourishes. Trade really flourishes. Jesus, Upper has a shed load of trade coming in. I can't trade back with him at the moment because we're not allied. And his donjon will kill my trade. So at the moment, any trade I do have in that large gathering, well, I don't have any, but if I did, it would be killed off anyway. Upper's troops all moving to the northern line, and my troops now making it through Moss's base and heading out to hit Matt's as well. As a moment of peace comes across the known world. Moss's paladins hit the conquistadors just as my archers arrive as well. Archers versus conquistadors. Longbowmen versus conquistadors. My money's on the longbowmen. Moss deals his damage as well, and Moss and I start attacking Matt's. Claiming land in the north where we can. I've got another couple of town centres up over there. I've still got farming going on. Not farming, sorry. We're using the fishes for all the farms. We are attacking some of Upper's troops there with archers, or some of his villagers, sorry, as we try to move through and claim this northern land. Moss and I, as mentioned, allied a while back. Now, I do have to say that when I was moving the troops up towards Moss's base and he ran his king into the town centre, I was actually going on to try and kill him. But when he moved him into the castle, I couldn't do it with the archers quick enough, so I didn't. My fleet then moves in to hit Matt's and Ramster's hold on Korea. We will dislodge them if it takes everything we've got. Matt's and Moss. Matt's using a little choke point there to trap Moss's paladins. And Ramster coming in with cataphracts to hit my force. Upper moves his forces in at the same time. But I have now ignored... I've turned away from Moss and I've allied to Upper Left Islander. So it's Upper and myself versus Mats and Ramster with Moss as an unknown entity. Moss's paladins entirely killed off by the conquistadors trapping themselves in a narrow gap and killing them one at a time. Matt's playing absolutely splendidly there, to be honest, and to pull that off. That was very, very, very good. But I don't have enough troops in the north, and it's not enough to support Upper's cavaliers as more conquistadors come and they cut through my longbowmen. My galleons do move in at this point and hit the trade on the eastern edge of the isle, taking down. We're running into another Ramster fleet, but we're moving in to deal with it, and more ships and the like will be produced and will come through. Troops flooding into the north now. So Moss has now got to sit back and rebuild. He does not have he's only got 39. He's got hardly any military compared to the rest of us. Upper has 278 villagers at this time. I've got 149 and Mats has 262. They are just whoring out the resources wherever they can. Cavaliers moving in to hit the siege, keeping them pinned now in the new crossing, the next stage of the crossing of the river line here. Upper and all of his siege, and I'm massing my own troops down in my base. I will move through to support. I've got Warwolf trebuchets ready, and we're on our way. Let's do this. Sicilian trebs hitting back at those conquistadors, and the cavaliers doing what they can to try and stop the rams. But Mats and the coming cataphracts are just pushing through. Moss then takes the opportunity to hit back at me and sends his paladins in to attack me. Very, very disappointing indeed. Very, very disappointing. But my army's on the way. I've got archers, 2 groups of archers, and a shed load of trebs. Let's go and help. Let's go and do something. We've got some ships down there just protecting the king, making sure no one gets anywhere near him. But the fighting is now in Upper's base. It's looking very, very bleak indeed. Moss takes down entirely my little external mining project. And things are looking bleak. My trebs and archers moving through, and we're moving to assist. Siege rams, though, coming in and hitting Upper. It's looking bleak. It is looking very bleak indeed. My archers coming up towards and to help on that northern line. Trebs moving through. Secondary archer line coming up. And we're going to help. We're going to Warwolf Trebs. We're going to take down those conquistadors. Or are we? No one expects the British Inquisition. I take this opportunity, rather disgracefully, to betray Upper Left Islander. And with the Trebs all in position, a single volley is all it takes. 25 Trebs turn on Upper's king. He jumps him out of the castle, but with the archers ready, Upper is taken out. So Upper gone. It's now, can we thrive without? I had managed to set up some trade in the interim. And we haven't claimed the sea back, but we're shifting into a naval focus now. Moss pulls all of his paladins back, not really sure why. My archers get killed off. And so it's Moss and myself, although again, we're not allied at the moment. And he's probably going to be a little bit hesitant to ally me, I should have thought. But Moss and I are now the only two remaining to fight back the storming tide of Spanish paladins and conquistadors. And look at this. Ugh. How... Ugh. He's building an entire another base just immediately. Preparing himself to attack. I go fully into a navy. Let's claim this land, shall we? He moves his troops down to finally hit my base. But this area, whilst being technically my base, doesn't really have anything anymore. It's all kind of gone now. And my army, rather than... You might be wondering, what happened to all of those trebuchets? Well, we put them in transports and we sailed them away. I thought, let's let him kill himself chewing through the remaining fat of my base as we push somewhere else. But before he comes and hits me, it's time for him to deal with Moss, so he moves in to do that. My ships bump into the ships of Ramster, and with the horde of trebuchets that we already had and the archers, we land on the southern tip of Korea. And we start claiming the land as best as we're able. The trebuchet horde does what it can. Clear the space for the villagers. They're on their way. They are on their way. The villagers come, and the base starts being built. We'll do what we can from this side. Moss does fight back and is able to do some damage to the conquistadors. They flee in panic, and the paladins on their way as well. Moss has moved his king to the far western corner as well, but it will only be a matter of time. Ramster's king, for some reason, was down on the shoreline, but he takes this opportunity to scurry him away, and off he goes as we clear this southern peninsula. But the conquistadors have already come back, and we can't cover them with the ships, but we try and lure them over to the galleons because we've got naval domination there. If we can get them over there, we can keep them safe. We start building as many archers as we can as the paladin and cataphracts come through. Well, cataphracts, no paladins involved. No paladins were harmed in the making of this video. But the paladins are harmed in the making of this video because Mosses and it's Frankish paladins versus Spanish paladins. En espagnol, c'est en français. Alors, who is going to win? I managed to get most of the trebuchets out. It'd be a shame to just lose them over something like that. But with the coming rams, we can't hold the castles. We just can't hold them back. But whilst Moss and I have re-engaged our alliance, it's not really going to be enough. But Moss does flee his king away at that point, running south as well. But the main fighting now is in the center, in the heartlands of Korea. My navy beats Ramster's navy off completely. And now it's just whether or not we can hold back. What we really need to do now is build a barracks and get some halberdiers up and just hold that thought. Because we'll pay off in that in a big way. But Moss's paladin hordes have been defeated, and Mats is moving in to just swarm and take over his base there. Moss King runs away down to the last remaining vestige of my hold on the mainland. My trebs tank the archer fire as we move to just clear as many castles as we can. Many as we're able. Kill all that you can. We run away. I know that we probably should have waited, and indeed we then do just take the opportunity to say to hell with it. We get the trebs killed off. But we take down a load of buildings before we do that. Mats has now completely cleared out Moss's base. But we have managed to reclaim the land. We've now got a horde of archers. We are now streaming in. We have the advantage of being very close to both of their kings with little in the way, little to stop us. We've got more villagers coming from Japan, the economic heartland of my empire. We've still got a large navy that can protect us if it needs be, and our archers are moving through. Moss sends his king south, as we mentioned, and he's rewinning his base down here with an interesting array of castles. With only about 4 villagers building them, that might take a wee bit of time. Our castles are up. We start getting some trebs out. Let's start bringing these castles down. Doing whatever we can do. Luke killed by me. Upper killed by me. Ho, 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 ho. Mats comes over and finds my base. Starts killing my villagers, but my castles deal with him. More trebuchets coming out. Keep pushing through Korea. We're doing what the Japanese always wanted to do but never could. Keep pushing, keep pushing. We will take Korea for the Empire of the Rising Sun. One castle goes, another castle goes. We are clearing off the peninsula quite nicely. And with the 1, 2, 3 conquistadors that come through, they need numbers, they need mass to get us. At this moment, I take the opportunity to say, why the hell not? We've backstabbed everyone else. Let's just kill Moss off as well. So we take Moss out in a very silly move, to be honest. But by this point, Mats's cavalry has already come back anyway, and it doesn't really matter. We can't stop that many paladins. We need way more archers, but we have cleared the bulk of the peninsula. And the fight ensues, but we don't have enough to stop that many paladins. And alas, now we are the only enemies for Ramster and Mats. We move in the galleons to try and support. Any damage is damage. Help the castles, help the castles. And they do help. There's plenty of galleons, and Mats has no way of countering them. His other force then moves in to take the remains of my old base down in the south. I'm now trading quite nicely with Mats' own dock, which is very helpful. We are losing 1 or 2 trade cogs en route as we go through. More galleons coming up on the western side. Some of our castles will survive, and our archers are now pooling at the back. We're just sticking with archers. Probably a bad idea in practice. You remember when I mentioned about needing a barracks and halberdiers, and I said that would pay off in a big way? That was a lie. I dropped the ball hugely. If we had some halberdiers, we might have been all right. We managed to stop them rebuilding anything there, and because of the thin gap here, our naval dominance is what will allow us to succeed in this instance. Mats realizes that he's going to need ocean control to get my king, because bare minimum my king's on an island somewhere, and he starts building docks to counter that. Our trade cogs have now unfortunately been all taken down by the castle, and we've lost that. But can we? Oh, and Mats decides to kill off Ramster as well, just for shits and gigs, really. Pardon the French. So it's me versus Mats. 1-on-1. Mano a mano. Who is going to come out victorious? Well, at the moment, I appear to be doing nothing, so probably not me. But Mats has moved his army south, and he's going to try and stop my hold in the south. My archers move forward. Let's go and start seeing what we can see in the north. Clearing what we can clear. So there will only be one winner in today's game, and my initial base in southern China is certainly not going to be spared. Mats has plenty of troops there, but I obviously abandoned this place long ago. My last gasp is to push through and see if I can hit him in the back, and can I take the king that way. We start getting some trebs out. We start getting the siege that we need. Let's take down the castles. Mats wastes himself killing my base. He's desperate in the hope that I might be bluffing and that my king might still be on China. That's really his only hope. I try and flee some villagers away over here, but Mats finds them and sends in some troops to stop them. As he continues to take down the remains of my base. Mats, at this point, because I'm now the only one left and I'm on the island, cannon galleons more than allowed. And he killed Ramster off. We hit the 2-hour point. And, of course, at that point, the only teams that were left allied were him and Ramster anyway. So that didn't have as much of an effect. I've hyped this up as being Doomsday at the start, but it didn't really actually matter. And what we took away from this is that if we do Doomsday again, which we absolutely will do, the timer needs to be much shorter. About the 1.5 hour mark is probably a better point for the timer. But in any event, that's why it's now 1v1. Otherwise, Mats would have stayed allied to Ramster, but the timer meant he had no choice. He couldn't let Ramster sit in his base and sit in the way like that, so he cleared him out, which helped me greatly because it took out all of Ramster's base and cleared a path. So I've got some archers and I've got some trebs, and Mats has gone into cannon galleons. And Spanish ones are damned annoying, as you can see, with their outrageously fast firing speed, or fast projectile speed. But I've got more normal galleons than he has cannon galleons, and the slow fire rate of the cannon galleons, even if they have a fast projectile speed, doesn't help here. And we are off. More trebuchets produced, and our archers are going as we distract him with an attack on his naval dominance. Well, no, we defend our own naval dominance. So, ships facing down. Spanish cannon galleons versus British galleons. It's the Spanish Armada all over again. Except we're in China. And a few hundred years too early. But anyway, we are taking out Mats' base there quite nicely. His navy falls rather delightfully. We've got some what are you called? Heavy demolition ships. I don't know why I forget the names. I play this game so much. And it's at this point that we then push through. Can we get to his king before he can mount a successful defense? Our archers take down some of his conquistadors that he had here. And then our trebs pushing through, just trying to clear space, destroying buildings, killing what we can kill. Our navy has claimed the oceans. He's bringing troops back, but we've got ships on the crossing there. There's nothing really stopping us, but he is training paladins out of the stables right next to our trebuchets. We've still got a fair few archers, though. And the trebs, we realise that we can't let the paladins train right on our doorstep. I send in my own cannon galleons. 2 can play at that game. And that's another castle that we can take down there. Although our cannon galleons do so broadly. But annoyingly, our demo ships didn't make it to the crossing in time. And Mats pulls his whole army across. I sent the demo ships up and then I completely forgot about them. And our attack fizzles out. And we lose any momentum we had. His king is in those castles. We came that close. If my demo ships had been on the crossing, we would have denied all of these troops. And if I just trained more archers out of the ranges at the back. But at this point, we were totally out of housing space. We were totally housed. I couldn't train enough archers. And so now Mats's king is protected and his army is now in the only place that my base still holds. I desperately try and get some halberdiers, finally. After 2 hours of fighting against a nation using only cavalry, I finally decide some halberdiers would be a good addition to the roster. But it is much, much too late. His paladins ride in and make short work of the last remaining archers that I have here. Abelisti. And it's way too late to be training halberdiers now. And alas, and alack, it ends. Mats takes the victory. 599 paladins trained versus my 754 arbalisti. Military, economy, society, total score, all goes to Mats, with technology going to me. Yes, I research everything, why not? Second score, though. So, looking through the military scores... Units killed, 1,900 for Mats, 1,100 losses. It would have been a totally different game if Chris had stayed alive. It would have been interesting to see how it played out in that regard. So that was disappointing there. I lost 1,900, but I killed 1,400. Buildings raised and losses there if you want to see those. There's all the economy stats. Matt's taking the top of everything save for trade, which I just pipped him to with the trade of his own docks. Thank you very much, Mats. Cheers to you. Technology-wise, the age-up scores in diplomacy don't really matter, but you can see them all there. I got the most exploration because I went to Japan and most people didn't. And then there's the society. CAPM with pro. I don't know what that ever means, but there's down the bottom is the chart. So the big thing for me in this one is... return to map. Is that if I had built more archers at the end there, I think we would actually have got him because he didn't have the room to bring his troops back. And rather than delete them and train new ones, he tried to run them back. If I had been slightly quicker, we would have beaten him to his king, which I think could have meant it. And if I'd actually moved the galleons to block these crossings, that would have bought us so much time. And we might just have been able to do it. But otherwise, Matt's a very well-deserved victory. I feel also that I totally shot myself in the foot by playing way too backstab heavy in this game. I should not have betrayed Upper. I think the two of us could have beaten Matt's. But at the point I betrayed him, I was looking at how much he was losing to Matt's pressure, and I knew that I couldn't really support very well. By the time I could move villagers up to build a base nearer to actually train troops, I think Matt's would have beaten Upper. Now, I'm sure... That's my own personal opinion. So I just took the view to get Upper out of the way, because why not? Why make it drag on? I should have betrayed Upper. I also shouldn't have betrayed Luke. That was another mistake. I just shouldn't have done that. Luke was helping with the elephants, and with Mats hitting fragments in the north as well, it could have been Luke and me versus Mats and Ramster. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I would have to deal with all these people at the 2-hour mark anyway. Because of the Doomsday clock, I knew that time was ticking. It was limited. And I know that Luke is the type of person that loves a backstab. So I took the view that I should remove Luke early because I don't want to be dealing with him at the 2-hour mark if it gets that way. Also because he's Vietnamese. Vietnamese are excellent against archers, and the Britons would have nothing against a Vietnamese player. If Luke is as powerful as he can be in the late game, I, as a Briton player, don't want to see him get to the late game. So that's why I betrayed him. And I betrayed Upper because at that point, that one was just for a laugh, really. He was already losing, so I jumped on the bandwagon, but I shouldn't have done. I should have stayed and helped him. And I think we could have beaten Matt. But equally, Upper would have beaten me if it went to the 2-hour mark. And I couldn't risk that. So that was another reason why I thought it would be a good idea to kill Upper. I can't beat a Sicilian player as the Britons, and I can't beat a Vietnamese. Now, of course, I could if the circumstances are right, but in a Diplo game with lots of resources, late game, a Vietnamese or a Sicilian player will have the Britons 9 times out of 10, and in this case, I didn't fancy my chances. So that's why I took him out. I'm so disappointed I didn't manage to take the castle at the end. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on Capture Age, if you prefer it or if you prefer to just stay with the normal way. Do you like being able to see where the king is at all times, seeing all the castles and the town centres, getting an idea up the top of what all everyone's units are? Or do you prefer the simplicity of the normal one? Please let me know. And I'm happy to use either. I prefer the other one, I will just say that, but not in a way that I don't dislike this one. There are pros and cons to both. My preference is the other one, but if this one has been far more enjoyable for you, then let me know. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of this week for another Dunland and a Reunited Kingdom video. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and until we speak again, Nevair na den Perimad Melonin, and farewell.